What's up, everyone? Today I'm working on making a replacement pickguard for this Fender Starcaster. I'm going to bring out the trusty Dremel Moto saw. This thing is amazing. And a few new additions. We got the Dremel router table attachment. I also picked up some sanding drums for my drill press. And we got a 45-degree angled router bit. And I picked up a few sheets of MDF, and I'm going to use these to make the templates. So here's a look at the router table outside of the box. Came with some mounting hardware. I have a stainless steel table, so I won't be able to mount it to that. So I got some shorter screws. I'm going to mount it to this slice of wood, so that way I can clamp it down. Oh, look how quick that was. 2 seconds. No, but I got it mounted with the screws onto the piece of wood now. And so I left enough on each of the edges that I can put my clamps on. But when I initially set it up here, I put them on the inside, which caused a bunch of issues later with like trying to adjust the Dremel itself. I took the guide off as I won't be using it. A pickguard will have all the curved edges. This is my Dremel. I have the 4000. This table's supposed to be somewhat universal, so most and or all Dremels. I'm not sure, I just know this one did fit. Now you see I smartened up and put the clamps on the outside, so that way I had like hand room to actually be able to get that threaded up in there. Make sure your Dremel's unplugged, guys, when you're changing out the bits. It's just for safety. But I'm basically putting it as far in where I get as much shaft in there, but still have the bit top free to move. All right, and then this is how you mount it initially. So you're going to turn it until basically it stops, but you want to be able to have the front accessible. There's a little window for the lock. So you see I turn it all the way and it gets like it doesn't want to do the full rotation. So that's when you want to back it up and line it up with that little slot hole so you can still access the lock. And here's where the wrench comes in. So you'll lock it into place there. So once that's locked in, now we have to deal with the height adjustment. So you could see the tip up here is protruding very high above. There's a thumb screw, silver thumb screw down at the bottom, so you'll use that to adjust your height. So I'm lowering that. And here's a view from the other side. So you can see the silver thumb screw, that's what you use to adjust the height. And I'll put a piece of material up on top to actually like verify where I want the guide tip that goes on the top and where the angles start cutting. Yep, got access to the lock. And then we'll turn this one, locks your height in place. So it's supposed to keep that from moving at all. All right, here's a piece of pickguard material and a piece of the MDF. And I'm attaching it with some carpet tape. And I'm going to adjust until I feel like I'm getting the right cutting height. All right, so I think I have it where I want it, where the tip's on the MDF and the blade is going to cut into the pickguard material. Here's my test piece. It's looking pretty good. I did lower it just a hair just because I didn't want to cut into the MDF at all, but very clean. Moving on to making the template itself. The guitar didn't actually have a pickguard, so as much as we're replacing it, it's more so that it didn't exist. But my husband had done some work on a guitar for a buddy who actually had a Starcaster. So we were able to hit him up, and he let us come over and trace his pickguard that was from his Starcaster. So anyway, I just traced it a couple times on some cardstock, and just to make sure that I had some spares. So we're going to trace it onto the MDF here. So I think traditionally you'd use like a much thicker MDF. I ended up purchasing 1/4 inch, as I assumed I didn't need it to be that deep since the Dremel router is bits are quite small. So now I got that traced out. I'm using my center punch just to mark the holes where I'll end up drilling for the mounting holes. And here's the final trace. I'm going to bring it over to my Dremel Moto Saw. I'm so happy I bought this. I got it just a few months ago. I went back and forth, needing a saw, debating on whether I wanted to get like full-size ones, which I live in a small apartment in Seattle, so space is a commodity. And is of limit. So I ended up taking a chance. There wasn't a lot of videos online about it, but what reviews I did read, people were super happy with it. So I'm glad I took the chance because it's been a total champ. Corners cut tight. It came with a bunch of different blades. Yeah, really clean, a lot of control. All right, so now I'm going to drill into the template, into the rounded corners, and this will allow me to cut in with the saw and then be able to actually like take the corner. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the throat, so the space between where the blade is and where that arm kind of bends around, is like 16, or it might be 18. But it's not even that big a deal because they have blades that come in the other direction. So if you need to feed, not the way that I'm oriented, but like the other direction, you can actually get quite a bit of length. The blade can be a little finicky sometimes trying to put it in, but if that's the worst thing I have to say about it, I can live with it. All right, check that out. It's pretty close, pretty clean. I put the smallest drum sander that I had because the base, this kind of makeshift base that I've made, is was actually designed for drilling holes in polycarbonate sheets for my husband's record lathe records. So we didn't have very much clearance with the hole, so I just used this the one that would fit into the little hole in the jig I already owned and had made. But it works fine because the smaller one, although it takes more time, it takes less meat off the MDF, and I needed a little more control. Now I'm drilling holes into the template. With MDF, you want to make sure that it has something beneath it to support it. Otherwise, you'll get like a ton of blowout on the bottom side. Yeah, pretty clean. Now I'm going to tackle the straight edges with my 4-in-hand file. Make sure that that's flat and straight. Now that the template's done, I'm going to put it onto the pickguard material. I believe traditionally the Starcaster comes with a 3-ply black, white, black pickguard, but I happen to have a 1-ply matte black on hand. Put a small piece of carpet tape just to make sure it doesn't move around on me. And stick that down. I'm looking for a better solution, but for now I'm going to use this oil-based paint marker. Doesn't have the most consistent results. It'll pool and then it'll barely show up, but I basically just drew it on here, let it sit to dry for a minute maybe, so I didn't smear it. I think I ended up smearing it anyway, but it is what it is. Yep, see, it's all smudgy on the side. All right, back to the motosaw. Here I just want to get close, so I'm staying outside of the yellow line. You can see I drew 2 on there because I wanted to back up. But you want to stay outside of the yellow line so that way you're in the safety zone, but there's not too much material for the router to like try and go through. Here I should have pre-drilled the corner on the first one of the like straight edge part, but I'll come back to it. Yeah, I'm just super impressed with the control that I have with this motosaw. Clean that off so it doesn't scratch the surface. So here you'll see I'm actually coming in on the corner so I can get that blade to fit and make the turn. And then just the final cuts. I go in, do the turn, and down. I did have to turn it out, back it up, and then come in there. So I've cut both of them out just as backup, and I ended up actually making 2 of them. Make sure that that's evenly spaced right in the center. Well put down with enough carpet tape. I use the outdoor carpet tape because that's has the strongest adhesion. So I took that safety guard off so I could see what I was doing. I don't really recommend that. I would try and use the safety guard. Don't do what I did. Do as I say, not as I do. And definitely wear safety glasses. You don't want any of that crap in your eyes. At this point, it was getting pretty smooth results going around, gathering a lot of material, which I'm trying to get out of the way. But I ended up doing 2 passes. So the initial one got most of the material there. But I went over through a second time just to try and have it be the smoothest that I could get it. Now before I take the template off the back, I'm going to use it to drill the holes. Make sure everything's lined up how it should be. And now we're going to take it off. You see that carpet tape's got a good grip. It's good stuff. So when you pull it up, you can actually use itself to get the rest of it up. Is a pro tip for you. Looking pretty sharp. I do have a lot of excess here on the inner flat sides since I couldn't go after it with a straight router bit. I actually have that on order. I just didn't get it in time. So back to the trusty 4 in hand and a lot of elbow grease. Want to make sure I get the fit just right. The holes were pre-drilled, so make sure that that corner edge is aligning with the pickup ring. There. Edge is pretty nice. The big reveal, pulling the plastic off. Gorgeous. It's like that guy online. Gorgeous. Yeah, so I'm going to bevel the edges. This is a little bit about pressure and how deep you go. It's really more about like the size of the head of your screw, so that way they can sit flush. The top hole is a pickguard mounting screw, and the bottom one will mount to the bracket. So I actually ended up making that bottom hole a little bit wider since the screw to the bracket was wider. It was missing the bracket, so I bought an aftermarket one. I actually don't recommend this one, because as you'll see in a second, the screw holes did line up, but the screws that were in the guitar did not fit, and the screws that came with the bracket did not fit. So at this point, I have to widen the holes in order to mount this thing. Pretty tight space in there with my hand there. The outer hole, not so bad. I could get a good grip, but after that, I mounted that one so I could get the tighter one. Easy enough. Inconvenient, but easy enough. And make sure that I clean the body before I put the pickguard down, since this is a hard to access part. I use lizard spit. It always seems to do a nice job. It gets up the gunk and polishes up nice. Get that bracket on there. I left the top screw there with the nut on the back a little bit loose, so that way I could get the bracket to be nice and flush against the body. But then I'd tighten it down once I get it in position. Now seems as good a time as any to ask you to kindly subscribe or like the video. It helps support me and helps support the channel, and I can keep sharing all the random stuff that I work on with you guys. I'll also be linking some of the products that I've used here below in the description. If anything struck your fancy, you know where to find it. Here's the final result. I think it's gorgeous. The customer thinks it's gorgeous. I love the matte black. And here's some still photos of it at the end of sending to the client. Well, I appreciate y'all for sticking around for all this. Hope it was helpful, and thanks for watching.